Joining me now from Concord, New Hampshire, where he just filed his papers to get on the ballot in the New Hampshire Republican primary, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. Governor, welcome back to The Lead.
Happy to be back, Jake. Thanks for having me.
So, Governor, I have to ask you about this big story breaking this afternoon. Donald Trump tweeting that Ben Carson's tale about being offered a slot at West Point is, quote, one of many lies. Do you have a response?
I really don't, Jake. I don't know enough about the story to respond. I'll just say this. Everybody's responsible for their own personal story. You put your personal story out there to folks, and you have to be responsible for that. So, I'm sure Dr. Carson will answer any questions that anyone might have about his personal story, and then the voters will decide whether that answer is good enough or not.
I know you've said that you'll show up anywhere they put up a podium and debate anyone, but the decision by Fox Business Network to demote you and Governor Huckabee to the undercard debate, that comes right as you're showing signs of gaining traction in New Hampshire in the polls. This must come as a big blow. Your performance in debates seems rather important to your campaign.
No, Jake, I don't see it as a big blow at all, and I don't see it as a demotion. I see it as a transfer. The fact is, we're going to be on the stage, we're going to be debating, people are going to be watching, and most importantly, Jake, you're going to be watching. And if I do really well, you're going to report on it the same way you've reported on it in debates 1, 2, and 3. And that's what really matters. And so, we in the Christie campaign are not whiners or moaners or complainers. I show up and I do my job, and that's what I'll do Tuesday night in Milwaukee, no matter which stage I'm on, and we'll go from there.
You and I have spoken about addiction before. It's something that you've been talking about for years. There was a moment at a town hall earlier this week in which you talk about it. The moment's gone viral. Millions of people have seen it. You talk about addiction in the context of your mother's struggle to quit smoking, her eventual cancer diagnosis. I want to play a little bit of this video and talk to you on the back end.
Sure. No one came to me and said, hey, listen, your mother was dumb. She started smoking when she was 16. Then after it was bad for her, she kept doing it. So we're not going to give her chemotherapy. We're not going to give her radiation. We're not going to give her any of that stuff. You know why? Because she's getting what she deserves. No one said that. No one said that about someone who had cancer. Yet somehow, if it's heroin or cocaine or alcohol, we say, well, they decided they're getting what they deserved.
How do you respond to people out there? Because I'm sure you have encountered these individuals who think heroin addicts, cocaine addicts, alcoholics, that they do deserve what they get.
Well, what I say is there, but for the grace of God go I. And that every person should say that. Because it can happen to anyone. And that's why the second half of the story that's depicted on that video is about my friend who I went to law school with, who was an Ivy League trained lawyer, married to a doctor, 3 beautiful daughters, great job, a lot of money, great house, who got addicted to prescription painkillers and then alcohol. And 10 years after the addiction began, he was found dead in a motel room by himself, divorced, not being able to see his children anymore, lost his law license, lost his driver's license, with an empty bottle of Percocet and an empty quart of vodka. This can happen to anyone, Jake, regardless of your educational level, regardless of your socioeconomic status. It can happen to anyone. And so I think what we have to do in this country is to start to acknowledge that and say, yes, it was a bad choice to use drugs. We're going to continue to tell our kids and everyone not to use them. It's a bad choice, but haven't all of us made bad choices in our life? And we were just fortunate that didn't involve an addiction to drugs or alcohol. It's a disease, and we need to treat it. And that's what I talk about all the time. I've been working on this for 19 years, and I'm going to continue to work on this issue because every life is precious. And if you're pro-life, you should be pro-life for the whole life, not just when they're in the womb.
I want to ask you about the jobs report that came out this morning showing the lowest unemployment rate in 7 years, 5%, what economists say is essentially full employment. 2 million Americans transitioning from part-time to full-time work this past year. As the economy does better, don't Republicans lose ammunition against the Democrats for 2016?
I don't know. People who I've run into campaigning around the country don't feel like the economy is better. Jake, GDP growth was 1.5% last quarter. That's anemic. And the unemployment rate is a mirage. They don't count people who have stopped looking for work. There is an incredible employment problem in this country. And not only is there an employment problem, there's a wage problem. This president complains about income inequality. Income inequality has gotten worse on his watch than it was before he became president. Middle-class wages are stagnant. And I tell you, I spoke to a woman this week up here in New Hampshire, Or I said, what's the biggest issue to you? And she said to me, every month when my bills come in, I'm filled with anxiety that I'm not going to have enough money to pay them. That's what's going on in real America, Jake, not in the Francis Perkins building in the Labor Department in Washington, D.C., where they cook up these numbers that I don't know have any relation to what's really going on in the country.
Of course, Governor, the real reason I had you on the show is to talk about this weekend. My Eagles, your Cowboys, the Jerry Dome in Arlington, Texas.
Sir.
I just want to offer you my condolences in advance.
Well, Jake, listen, why don't we talk on Monday about that? We'll see. I mean, you know, we know that when we had our quarterback, we beat you on your field. Now, we don't have our quarterback now, but again, the Cowboys are like the Christie campaign. They don't whine or moan or complain, and they don't make excuses. We'll show up at AT&T Stadium on Sunday, and we'll see how it goes for the Eagles.
All right, Governor Christie, thanks so much. We'll see you out there on the campaign trail.
Thank you very much, Jake.